Can't start.
It will record. It will start recording automatically.
Thank you.
We'll give a minute to everybody, Vicky. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So good afternoon, Shailene. Thank you for joining us. We're going to wait a couple of seconds just to see if we get anybody else joining, but then we've got a really exciting afternoon planned for you. But yeah, welcome. So I think we have another couple of people joining us. We're just waiting a few moments, and we'll probably start at about 2:03. But I just wanted to say welcome for the moment, and then we'll get cracking soon. We've got a very exciting hour planned for you. Welcome, Andy. Thank you for joining. We're about 30 seconds, maybe 40 seconds off starting officially. Just wanted to say hello while you joined. We'll start at about 2:03, and then we've got an exciting interview for you to enjoy for the next hour. Okay, right, it is 2:03 and we're going to get the show going. So welcome and thank you everybody for joining. My name's Victoria Collier. I'm a Customer Engagement Director with Orbrick. I've got the pleasure of being joined by my colleagues Niam and Leitham. I'm going to let them introduce themselves very quickly, and then I will run you through the order of events today. Niam, would you mind introducing yourself first, please?
Sure. So my name is Niam. I head the HCM practice for Orbrick, and I've been in HCM for all my career. That's been over a decade of implementing and supporting a lot of customers. And I've gained a lot of perspective in terms of how HCM can affect people. And so that's what I try to make most of my conversations about. And I've worked in the UK local government for a long time before we started Orbrick.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Leitham, would you mind introducing yourself, please?
Thank you, Victoria, and good afternoon to you all. I'm Leitham Green. I'm the Executive Director of Transformation at Oracle, and I look after all public sector industries. I joined Oracle, just over 3 years ago, having spent the better part of 4 decades or so in public sector local government, primarily, and all of my working world has been to do with people in some way, shape or form. So this is a big area of interest to me. It's great to be with you, and I can't wait to explore a little bit more in terms of what you've been up to.
Brilliant. I know I'm very excited for this afternoon's interview. But before we start, I'd just like to give my own personal reference for your 2 MCs for today. So I've worked with Niam and Leitham for quite some time now, and I can promise you that they are both passionate advocates for continuous improvement in the HR space. And I think they're going to have a lot of really good insights for you. I think Oracle speaks for itself. So I think if you're joining this call, it's probably because you have an Oracle solution and you're interested in the HR space and you're looking for some ways to improve your return on investment. So what I wanted to do though first is take a moment to introduce Rick. If the person who just joined, can we just pop you on mute? Brilliant. Thank you very much. You're obviously in a very busy environment there. So Orbrick. So I've had the pleasure of working with Orbrick for a while now, but I've had the pleasure of working with the people at Orbrick for a number of years. So Orbrick's been established. It's a fairly startup company. Let's say startup moving into scale up. but they have a lot of credentials between them as consultants. And I think it's pretty safe to say that if you've worked on a public sector UK implementation across HCM or ERP in the past 5 years, you've probably worked with an Orbrick consultant. So I think between them, they have around 100 years of experience. But what made me want to work with Orbrick was that they're not your typical SI. So actually their focus isn't on, we're the Oracle experts and we will come in and we will tinker with your system and set it up for you, which is surprising because actually they are the Oracle experts and they could come in and tinker with your system and set it up for you. But what's really great about this organization is that they're business focused and business first. So their passion and their desire is to actually come in and help you understand your business and understand that, provide you with subject matter experts in those in those particular business areas, who can help you to optimize your processes in line with modern best day practice, but also to help you get the return on investment. So actually their strapline at the moment is that they're 100% focused on the continuous success of Oracle's existing customers. And they do this through being purpose-driven, design thinking led, and also through having developed a number of really, really awesome tools that complement the Oracle product set, but bringing in the best practice components of artificial intelligence. I think that's probably enough of singing your praises for the moment. But what I'd like to do now is just talk you guys through the format of today. So we're very lucky because Niam is, as I've said before, he's a real expert in the HCM space, but we're also really lucky that we've got Leatham joining us. And actually, rather than this being a system focused session, we're going to focus on some of the business challenges faced in the HR space, particularly around recruitment, and we would like, or talent management effectively, and we would like to take you on a journey with us as we discuss those topics. So it would be more of an interview style with a little bit of product demonstration. Okay, I will hand over to Niam and Leatham now to let the session begin officially.
Thanks, Victoria. And just a shout out to everybody. If you've got any questions that you would like to pose to us, just pop them into the Q&A or the chat, whichever is easier. We'll keep an eye on both and we'll make sure that we pick those up for you. And as I said, great to be with you. And Niam, Victoria's given us a really interesting overview there in terms of your business. Is there anything else you want to share with us before we kind of kick off in terms of, why do you exist and the purpose behind your business?
So I think Vicky did a great job of explaining that for us. But yeah, I mean, we've been through literally hundreds of implementations in our past life. So we know that, we know how that works. We've also noticed when things don't work. And we know there's a ton of research that says 70%, for example, McKinsey says 70% of all implementations fail to meet their purpose. And that was quite central to our thesis, that you often invest in ERP with some hope in your project charter. You start with a transformation thesis, and then somewhere there's a purpose drift or an outcome drift, which takes you away from that. And by the time you're in your month 7, it's all about going live. So it doesn't matter why you actually want to go live. It matters more that you're done with it. And as you go live, your project sponsorship goes away. As you go live, you start to just make it about the minutia rather than about the bigger picture. And so we tried to build Orbrick around the idea of refocusing on what matters, that the end result of transformations, the outcomes. And we do whatever it takes to get those business outcomes. Ultimately, it's not about the system. It's not about the go live. It's about the transformation that you actually unlock in your business through these efforts.
Which is great. And one of the big areas of focus that I've got currently is about working with our customers to extract those stories of value, and what is it that they're kind of really focusing on to gain the maximum value from the investment they make, because this is not, an insignificant sum of money that organizations put into this. And when I was kind of doing my research in advance of today's webinar, I came across this concept of zero gravity hiring, and I was really intrigued by that. So just wondered if you could share a little bit more about it.
Sure. So the idea, again, comes from seeing how hiring works. So HCM is unique in the sense that you have if there are 100 different customers, there are 100 right best practices, because it's always going to be different. It's always going to be for that customer, what works. And what we've noticed is there are a lot of friction points across different recruitment processes, HCM in general, in fact, ERP in general, but particularly with HCM, you have points of friction. Now, if you're a large retail store and if your customer is your candidate, and you ghost them, you don't have a rejection strategy in place, you don't really do it, communicate properly, you're going to lose not just a good candidate, you're also going to lose a customer. And these are just like these, it's just riddled with examples like this. uh, there's always a pull there, no matter what your process is, you're always eventually going to be at, pulled down. There's going to be friction. And so zero gravity hiring is something that goes in line with our idea of continuous improvement and outcome focus. So value maximization is what we call it. We've identified like 70 different outcomes that you can get from your ERP, which are susceptible to that drift. Recruiting is a big part of it. So I'll just quickly uh, show you something on that. We call it our outcome library. So this is a library of outcomes we've identified. I'll just select HCM so that it's more specific to us. But you can see there are business outcomes that you want. Ultimately, a CHRO doesn't care about whether ORC is live. They care about whether the candidates are coming through, their employer brand is protected, the candidate drop off is under control, things like that with their recruitment process. So zero gravity hiring just takes the idea of these recruitment related outcomes and how do you continuously improve. What worked 1 year ago might not work now. You have continuous trend changes, you have continuous friction points that develop over time. How do you smooth that out and make sure that your hiring is effortless? That's the entire idea of it. Maybe candidate drop off has increased. How do you stop that? It's just that idea of constant improvement.
I really like that ability to kind of focus the attention so directly on those key areas, and it's got to be so beneficial, not just for the kind of the professional team of recruiters, but also I would imagine for line managers in terms of being able to get a broader understanding of what's going on. And those, as you say, those key points of friction that kind of can derail the process and kind of impact the experience, not just for the manager, but all, more importantly for potential candidates out there. Yeah. So where do you get the kind of the idea from that there is untapped value in this business area?
So what we've realized after so many go lives is that go lives are not the end, they're the beginning. And so we reimagine transformation as starting from the point of go live, and we see it as a journey. So we see it in 3 phases. We imagine that there's a lift off that happens right after go live, which is where you're still stabilizing your product. You're still learning the ropes. You're still kind of struggling with how everything comes together. Once you get a hang of it, once the big hypercare bugs are fixed, you use it for a few months, you get into ascend, which is again where you've started moving up, you're in space, the rocket hasn't exploded yet, so you're probably safe, but you're still not quite there because the journey is quite distant. So you're still in that transformation phase. It's not done, it's being done. And finally, you reach very close to where you are once you're done with that. Once you've been strategic in Ascend, you've actually identified, okay, these were what our initial assumptions were, but under strain, they're breaking. So we need to enhance, advance, eliminate, or, just overall improve our system somewhere, automate certain things which we had not imagined we would need to before. And you keep improving it till you get to orbit, which is where everything just feels like it's zero gravity. You're no longer worrying about day to day. You don't think your system's ever going to break, no matter how many candidates flow through, or how many different kind of requisitions need to be opened. You're confident in your system. That's where you start maximizing your value from that system, and finally you land to your transformation. That's the way we are imagining this entire journey. And so we've built a lot of tools around identifying where those drifts are occurring and where the value is untapped. So there's a lot of research that says people spend about 22 minutes a day just figuring out how to use systems, especially when they're new. There's a lot of research that says more than 60% of all features are underutilized. So there are and this is not just statistic. This is experience. We know when we support customers, a lot of customers might not even be aware that problems to their solutions are just right there. They're baked into the product. Maybe there was a release note that they missed, and they've just been living in the past in that sense. So just identifying those areas and continuously improving and educating customers, creating solutions that lower that drift, they help you change the phase of your transformation. So again, like you asked, how do you identify that? I'll quickly show something which might be useful, and we'll actually share this across with our with the uh, audience as well. So you can see if you just go to orbrick.com, there's a small survey we've created. This is an self-assessment ERP maturity assessment, which we call First Look. So first look, effectively, if you just take it, I'll just take it with you. It'll take less than 2 minutes to close. So effectively, what it does is it checks your gut feeling. It understands what you already know is going wrong, and it gauges based on questions without needing any data, what kind of issues you might be facing with your ERP, or where we think based on this assessment you have the most value to be realized. So let's say I pick human capital. It's just a series of questions. How well does it align? I'm not going to spend too much time on the individual questions, but everybody should feel free to take this. It's a fun quiz. Uh, we've we've not made it too serious, but it does the trick of at least getting to know which areas of HCM, for example, here would be the most affected. And then it gives you a neat little just report that tells you where you currently are, what kind of changes we should expect. We evaluate everything from 6 different lenses. So that's data quality, process modernization, efficiency, AI and automation, and risk and governance. And then it lets you get some resources that are immediate value. So you don't have to do anything just based on what you think is wrong. You can just have some resources given to you, which you can start applying into your day to day to improve the outcomes for yourself. However, this is just based on fields. So how do you go make it more scientific? That's where we have something called Foresight, which we've built. And Foresight, what it effectively does is it takes very little information from you, but it will go into your Fusion and it will actually generate a detailed report. I'll show you what that report looks like as well. So just it takes about 10 minutes to generate this report. But once you have this, it actually checks hundreds of different KPIs and then identifies which phase you are in, and it can recommend which outcomes are most relevant to you. So it's going to go through some key performance indicators for you. If you pick recruitment, for example, and it will walk you through which phase it thinks you're in, where are the benchmarks missed. It will do a great amount of process mining. So here you can see what your real process looks like. And this is one of my favorite parts. So every time I've been in conversation with any customer, their process has always been linear in their head. So it's always step 1, step 2, step 3. Anytime I've actually looked at the data, it's always a tangled mess because HCM is never that straightforward. So this actually brings up that process. It discovers the real process, the truth behind the data, using your actual data. And so you can see where the loops are, where the points of friction are, and you can start alleviating those places. So that's a big one. And then, as I said, our AI uses our knowledge bank to give you some remediation suggestions as well. It looks through multiple different KPIs and tells you where you're missing the benchmark, what are the major areas of concern, and what useful actions you can quickly take. And potentially, what is the cash flow that you unlock as well? It will go through multiple different external sources. It will check macroeconomics if it affects it, does a ton of things. But ultimately, the aim is this helps you do data-driven discovery of untapped value for you.
And Nima, where do the key KPIs come from?
They are from our knowledge bank. So we have identified across the 60 plus outcomes we have about 450 KPIs that we've identified affect those outcomes. So and we go through all of those in foresight, and then we've built further services that keep drilling down on it, continuously monitor it, etc. But yeah, that's based on decades of experience that we put it through.
Is there a difference between commercial industries and public sector in terms of those kind of KPIs?
There could be. So most of it will still be overlapping. So what is your candidate drop off would pretty much be the same KPI. The benchmark, however, might change. So we imagine benchmarks in three different ways. One is we have a combination of region and industry. The second would be like a benchmark based on what we or the customer thinks is the right benchmark. And the third option would be to go with internal benchmarking. So what you can do is you can just identify within your organization what are the best performing units, and then how do you compare. But yeah, it will vary slightly based on where you are and what industry it is.
Yeah, and it's useful to know. The thing that I really liked about that short demo there is the graphic that you present, which demonstrates, this is not a linear process, because most colleagues who I speak to just see the step by step by step as if it's just this straight line and we're stuck here. And presenting it that way really shows the complexity in terms of how the whole process kind of intermingles together. And it really kind of should, I hope, start to generate a very different kind of conversation with both the manager and the recruiting professional. Anything that you can share with us in terms of how it's kind of shifted and changed the conversation?
So, for example, one of the things based on just experience is people take the self-assessment and they get a response which is somewhat based on their gut feel. They already know what is wrong typically. But when you take the data-driven assessment, that just opens up a different avenue for conversations, because now you have not only validation of what you felt, but you have actual scientific evidence for it. You know where your deviations are, and you know visually how things are going. So it's very easy for me to explain, hey, there's a loop here. People are continuously moving across the same process. And so that's where we need to invest to kind of unknot the process there. So those kind of conversations, in my experience, have really engaged customers in understanding their own processes better, because you never have a look at this. And this is something, when I did not have these tools, as a consultant, I used to do an exercise with all my customers. I used to call it the empty chair. So effectively, for every recruitment conversation, I need to have an empty chair which represents the candidate. And I would encourage CHROs and other business leaders to actually apply to their own jobs, and just see where they were frustrated by it, right? So, and you would come up with such amazing insights, because most people don't sample their own product. They've never actually tried applying. But when you actually sit down in a room and start applying, and they're like, why is this taking so long? Why do you need this information at this point? It kind of untangles that process. And this does it for you in 10 minutes. It used to take me like hours just to convince people to do it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
it's just faster.
No, I think, yeah, I can see huge benefit that you could get from it. I mean, I've taken the survey myself, and I was really kind of blown away at its simplicity, but also the kind of the power of the information that you receive. And I'd be intrigued to find out how other colleagues find it when they kind of check it out themselves. So how do you start going about unlocking that value?
So as I said, so one of the tenets of Orbrick is that if I'm taking a minute of your time, I want to give you a minute of value. So the ERP self-assessment, we tried to put in content. We regularly generate content that helps customers do their own value unlock. So if you give us 7 minutes, you get content there which immediately starts helping you at least improve things in the right direction. The next step is data driven, where we actually try to build in even more actionable solutions which are very specific to your instance, to your system, and they tailor out and they give you some tips and some actions there. The logical next step is we have built an entire service called Second Sight. So its first look is the self-assessment, foresight is, so we have tied it into that theme. But the Second Sight service is where we actually go transaction level. Up until now, we're not looking at any transactions. We're all looking at aggregates, KPIs at a high level. We're not actually going line by line. But in the Second Sight service, we take about a week, depending on how many outcomes you've selected to analyze. And what we do is we run them through our own tools, which we've built across to do process mining on a transaction level, to do KPI benchmarking on a transaction level, to do predictive analytics, machine learning. And we use immense amount of data that's already sitting there to maximize your ROD, or return on data. This is how we'll find out exactly where the points of friction are. This is how we'll find out exactly where you have untapped value, where you're not meeting benchmarks. And if we just fix them a little bit, you will start seeing much better results in your actual business process. So again, I can show you a quick glimpse of that. Typically what we do is we would take our tools to your environment, and then this is an example of just one process map. So this is a recruitment process, this is a procure to pay example, but it's actually you are able to visualize how each particular, if this were a candidate recruitment flow, how each particular candidate flows through the process. And this is where we do a lot of statistical analysis. So I'll show you the tool as well. So this is what a candidate selection process looks like from application to hiring. And what I'm able to do is I'm just able to filter it, see what are the most common paths, where are the bottlenecks. So the thickness is indicating to me how many candidates flow through that flow or that process. And I'm able to just look at each individual transaction, do statistical analysis on it, and figure out where exactly I need to work further. So as you can see, there are 32 variants of the same process. So there are 32 ways in which a candidate can flow through your system. Typically we only talk about one, right? That's what goes into your solution design document. But and I've seen 197 here as well. It's like the number just keeps going up. Yeah.
So what kind of response do you get back when you're
Similarly, we have
presenting that kind of information?
So sometimes it's a mixed kind of a thing. So sometimes it's disbelief, sometimes it's shock, sometimes it's, hey, maybe that doesn't look right. Can we look a little deeper? And that's where we have, that's why we go transactional, because sometimes it's, people are not often ready to accept that that could be a problem. But this is where we've built tools that actually go much deeper into it. So you can see just it's just it's been like 9 months in the making, but we've actually gone to each transaction, so there's no doubt in anybody's mind, right? We are able to look at it from the most granular level, and just tell you that these are the areas where you need to declog. And once you're done with that disbelief, I think it's then just the opportunity is visible quite clearly, because you take a small improvement, multiply it by the scale at which ERPs function, and it's just a great value unlock.
And one of the big issues, across all businesses, is the importance of ensuring data privacy and security. So, what can you say in terms of providing that sense of ease for colleagues listening?
Right. So all our tools, we make sure all data is encrypted. Of course, those basics are taken care of, but the bigger portion is for any transaction level analysis. So as I said, for most of these tools, we don't take any data. We just take the aggregate number. Typically, we ask customers to run it on their test instance, the one with the latest P2T, and all the data can be masked. So there's an additional layer of just mental peace. But we don't take any PII, we don't take any transactional data when we do the initial analysis. When it comes to the detailed transaction level analysis, which is the second side consulting service, we don't take data out. We bring our tools to your environment in just one virtual machine that you build out in your environment. And we do all the analysis there and then just remove our tools. We never take any data from the customer. But of course, still everything is encrypted. We're using our own OCI and OIC. We can also deploy it on your OCI in a lot of cases, so that it's completely segregated.
And what is the evidence to show that this kind of intervention will work for an organization and the recruitment team?
So that's actually a very good question. We built out an outcome realization stack. So what I've been showing you so far are different parts of the overall stack. And that was a missing piece. So we had, how do you discover there's a problem or there's a value untapped somewhere? There is, how do we figure out how exactly do we do remediations and interventions? And then the final part was, how do we prove that the intervention worked? Because sometimes it doesn't. You might do a lot and nothing might work. So then we built out a final tool, which is called hindsight. So what that does is it plugs onto your Fusion. You get access to it, and each intervention is built into it. So intervention management is built into it. When you're done with an intervention, it'll record it, and then it'll keep monitoring the same KPIs after and before the intervention. So you're able to see clearly whether the intervention had a statistically significant impact on your KPIs or not. So just a very quick look of that as well. Um, so just give me 1 second.
I don't
So
remember ever finding $50 in my old jeans, by the way. Yeah, so if you've got any spares, just pop them over if you find any more than that.
I think we'll have to change that line to something that you did find in your jeans. So maybe 50 pounds, hopefully. So yeah, so this is your hindsight. What it's doing is it is tracking 7 outcomes right now. Some of them are AP, some of them are HCM. And across 7 outcomes, it's just telling you what's the overall level like. So which phase is how many outcomes are in liftoff phase, how many are in ascent phase, how many are in orbit phase. And I'm able to see each outcome individually as well. So you can see there's a star here. So for reduced time to fill, these are the different KPIs that I've decided that I want to monitor out of all my list of KPIs. And I'm able to just look at uh, this intervention here, and I can see how that intervention went. So for each different KPI, if there's a specific intervention, I'll be able to see how I did before and after. So here, for example, I made an intervention in Q2 FY 2024. How does it affect my outcomes? So that's something that I'll constantly be able to monitor through this. It also has predictive analytics built in. So if you use this tool for about 4 to 5 months, it will start predicting, proactively monitoring risks, and there will be declining KPIs. Maybe things have changed. As I said, the drift emerges over time. So how do you know that something is going to go wrong? So we've built models that actually predict that based on historical trends and data from across your go live to now, there's a high risk that these KPIs are going to start falling. And so it can start talking about those things and warn you proactively as well. We also have a process monitor, so you can see when the intervention was done and you changed the process, how has that process changed, and what is the comparative benefit that you got, or has it actually made things worse and do you want to go back to your old process. So it actually talks through that. It uses AI grounded on our own knowledge. So it's not just AI like putting it in chat GPT. It's based on our own years and years of understanding of what each thing needs, and it just puts that across, and you can actually then based on its own suggestions of interventions or your own custom suggestions, you can actually track those interventions within the system, and eventually it will start telling you exactly how much measurable value you've achieved once it has enough data, because then it's able to just do all the math for you. It knows how much benchmark improvements happened. It knows how much interventions have affected those benchmarks. And so it's just able to tell you these are the areas that have improved. These are the areas that have not. Based on that, this is what you unlocked in value.
So I would imagine from your experience today, you must have come across some kind of suggestions where you believe there are is low hanging fruit for the recruitment professional or a manager that they can access immediate value from. So what would you say those are for you?
So I think we often ignore certain things when we get into more of a standardized kind of approach for implementation. So I have that's why I have this idea of keeping an empty chair, because then you're able to put the candidate as a stakeholder. But there are some simple things. If you look at data, for instance, and these are things that I'm not talking about what you can do after you do all of this process of outcome value maximization. I'm going to focus on things that we can immediately start doing. One of them I find is we ask for too much too early. So the candidate drop off there is old research that says every field that you put on a candidate application flow results in 0.5% of your potential candidate applicants dropping off. That's very old research. I think that numbers has gone up because people's patience levels have gone down. People are applying more on the job, applying more on the go, and they are using phones to do it. So it makes it harder still to actually start filling so much information through a phone. So can you ease that process? So you ease that process by doing two things. First, put in automation to read the CV, parse it, and put it in. Let people import their LinkedIn profile. So LinkedIn integrations absolutely must do. Or rather, or reduce the total questions you ask. You don't need that much information upfront. You don't need somebody's NI number when they're applying for a job. You could do a second pass and ask that later after there has been an interview. So there's more incentive for the candidate to kind of go and do that. The second big thing I've seen is just know your demographics, like know who you're hiring and try to meet them where they are. So candidate sourcing, for example, are you doing data driven candidate sourcing? Do you know which sources are good, which sources are bad? So I've done this with a couple of customers where we were able to improve their total number of qualified applicants by over 10% simply by switching sources. We stopped putting money in the bad ones, started putting money in the good ones. Which where what kind of people are applying would also dictate where you want to optimize. So do you want to go mobile first? Do you want to go do you want to make it easy for it on a computer? Ideally do both. Do you want to use video interviews? Right. So those are kind of a gray area as well. I think they're extremely effective. We've effectively used video interviews to cut hiring time by more than 20%. Because you just have one video interview done. Somebody can verify that video interview, takes 3 minutes later on their own time, and there's no candidate reschedule and things like that that you have to manage. So it's really effective, but they can also make people feel like they're impersonal. So how do you counteract that? So these are things that you need to kind of study on your own and understand for your organization what matters. Uh, some things around candid communication should always be there. So candid communication agent is something that should always be there. You should consider two-way messaging, which is the if you're an Oracle customer, it's in the Oracle Recruiting Booster. You get the ability to have two-way messaging. It's just good to keep the candidate informed. It's just good to let them know that they've been passed over this time. Maybe next time we would keep you in mind, and then actually keep them, somewhere where you can keep them in mind. So those kind of things. And finally, in the age of AI, I think more and more utilization of AI in a way that's more human. So not just completely writing everything through AI, but using the embedded AI and features that Oracle has rolled out to kind of make things more human, more empathetic that way. And lastly, I think one of my favorite things, which I have always dreamed of, but we never were able to do before, which AI now lets you do, is any HR survey, you had to do a quantitative survey. So you could just ask multiple choice questions, do assessment, statistical assessment on that. The problem with that is that those surveys are not things that you can discover things with. You need to have a hunch of what the problem is so that you can frame a question in the way that you can take data on it. Now you can just ask open-ended questions, use Gen AI to summarize it, and it will give you a lot of information, which was previously impossible to take. So those are some of my favorite things, like cut down the application flow, communicate more, use AI strategically. What I would actually be interested in knowing, Leetham, what you think. What do you think are the most important tips?
Oh gosh, I think my suggestion would be to do with a mindset shift, I think, and all of the data that your product is providing to both professional recruiters and managers enables, I think, colleagues to begin to move away from transactional thinking into strategic insight, and using this as insight. So shifting the language from data to insight is a big thing. I've been working with some colleagues over the past few months, and this is a really important kind of skill set for HR professionals to acquire, not just HR, it's across all business functions. And instead of asking, for example, how many vacancies you filled or what's the time to hire, using the data, the insight, to then challenge you in terms of, what type of talent are we attracting through this particular process that we're using, or are certain teams or job roles struggling more than others, and then being able to ask that question why. And are you as a business hiring high performers? Because that's what we want, isn't it? And can we actually use that for the insight? The second area is about combining recruitment data with other people metrics and also stuff that kind of spans across the business. So hidden value, I think, often shows up when you can connect sets of data from across the business effectively. Connecting ERP data with your HCM data and that whole ecosystem, and cross-referencing recruitment data with stuff like turnover rates or performance ratings that you might have, promotional rates, grievance rates, and really kind of creating that insight across the business. And finally, you've already picked this up yourself now. I think the big thing is using this insight to tell the story of the candidate experience. Drop-offs in the application process could indicate that, the user experience is not right. You've got to do something to fix it, and this would help with that. Sometimes it's about, looking at the insight around declined offers. Is your employee value proposition fit for purpose? Do you need to shift or change that? That might be misaligned with the candidate expectation, for example. And I don't know, a good one that I always found interesting to try and get underneath of, how often are people rescheduling interviews? And does that kind of show you something in terms of your own internal inefficiencies? Because that has such a big impact upon the kind of candidate experience. So those would be my three top kind of tips in terms of areas that you can quite easily. But it's the big one is about that mindset shift from data to insight. So connected with that kind of tips and kind of some action. If I gave you a magic wand today and said, what would you change about the state of HCM? What would that be for you, Niam?
So I think that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to build a magic wand. As I said in the beginning, I've always felt that HCM systems are a reflection and a custodian of culture, and their leverage. And you can't really do much with a broken lever. And I think most of the ERP systems eventually drift out. So I would probably build an outcome realization stack where the purpose of your transformation and your real, what you're actually getting has no drift. So we hope that we'll be able to achieve at least most of it with this. But that would be my magic wand moment. I would really want people's organizational purpose, why you signed up to implement an HCM system, to actually be fulfilled. That would be my magic wand moment. But that's a curious. What would your magic wand moment be, Ethan? What would you do if you had a magic wand?
I think I might be seeing some of this coming through, but I've always been a champion of equity, and so removing any inequality in the process and bias, which is always something that as an HR director was pushing against in organizations, from all aspects of that, employee life cycle, from hire to compensation to development, promotion, because I wish that everybody did get the same access to it, but currently it's still not true. So I'd make sure that hiring and promotion decisions were based purely on kind of merit and potential rather than background or demographics. And some of this data that people have got access to through this solution would help that. And everyone receives that transparent and equitable opportunity for development. And I know that's still not the case. So how can we start using an HCM tool to break that down? Which certainly in my experience of Oracle, it really helps with that. And people analytics are used to remove bias, not reinforce it through historical data. And I think my final point would be the HCM tools are inclusive by design, accessible, empathetic, and you pick that up in terms of having that humanity coming through, and context aware, because context is always everything, I think, isn't it? But this is not just ethically right. I think it also drives better performance for the organization, kind of engagement, innovation, and kind of ultimately that employee experience, which is really what we're about, for the business. So, it's a great thing just to kind of give a bit of thought to, I think, though, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So before we kind of wrap up for this afternoon, I mean, that's amazing insight and overview in terms of what's on offer. Kind of what's next? What's anything that you want to share with our listeners in terms of where can they get more information about this?
So I think a good start would just be to take the self-assessment. It gives you a good grounding, and it then explains a lot of things as well. There are videos there. So just go to orbrick.com, take the self-assessment. There's no cost to it. And hopefully it will give you some good tips as well.
Mm-hmm. And I look forward to doing more events and sessions with you and kind of exploring a bit more detail, isn't it? Because this is just kind of a little teaser kind of to friends out there to kind of find out more about it. I think it's a brilliant opportunity for us. And it's definitely, I mean, with high volume kind of recruitment taking place, this has got to be an area, hasn't it, for HR professionals to actually demonstrate value in the business and show, where there's untapped kind of potential, both for the experience of our candidates and managers, but also it's got a pound sign really heavily attached to this, and kind of removing those inefficiencies, which allow the organization then to make choices about where it puts its kind of value that's been released through these inefficiencies being kind of fixed and improvements being realized. So thank you so much for sharing those with us. Victoria, over to your good self.
Brilliant, thank you. What an awesome session. I definitely learned a lot myself. And actually, Leitham, I really like your idea of tracking the metrics on how many times an interview has been moved. Because if you think about it from a candidate's perspective, it can be a real struggle to actually carve out the time for an interview and to do the prep. Interviews often require a lot of prep as well. So I think it's a good lesson to all of us hiring managers to be a bit considerate of the people we're trying to attract. Niam, we have two questions.
You will be happy to know that we do that as well. So one of our KPIs is interview reschedules, and we look at things across. So for source quality in recruitment, we will look at talent data as well. It's fully integrated. We actually try to take data from supply chain, ERP, everywhere we can get it, just to get an outcome done. So
here we go. So not only are you an ethical Oracle provider, but you're also an ethical hirer, which is good. So that's another good plug for you. So there's a couple of questions for you, Niam. The first one is on a very interesting turn of phrase that you use. So most people talk about return on investment, but you talked about return on data, and I kind of picked up the vibe it was linked to return on investment in some way, but I think there's a question here to explore that a little bit further.
Yeah, so it is a form of ROI, but what happens with ROI is a bigger expectation of more investment. So if I say, what's your return on investment on second site, it's more on how much more money can I get from you, but that's not the point. The point is ERP systems effectively are data collection machines. They just keep on eating data, and there's so much data there gathering dust. You never really do much with it. You do a little bit of OTBI reporting, you might do a traditional report, but you're not really using it to its fullest potential, which is why we look at everything in terms of return on that data that you're collecting. If you're asking a candidate, as I said, right, that's our philosophy to the core. If you're asking the candidate for some information, how is that information being used? And it should be used to improve the entire stack. And that's what we aim to do. So yeah, it's just ERP data.
Thank you. And from my perspective, I think that's a very, very true statement. So, the purpose of ERP systems is to gather information so we can make decisions. That decision may be, how much does somebody get paid at the end of the month, or it may be, what do I need to do to improve my business? I think that's a very good answer. The other question that we have is on the KPIs, and the question they've posed is, when is the best time? So if you're looking at the sort of Oracle continuous improvement journey, when is the best time to look at the KPIs? And I think it's a two-part question as well. So when is the best time to look at the KPIs? But then also, in terms of the KPIs, how does it work when the organization you're working with isn't confident they understand their KPIs?
So, and this can happen a lot. So that's a good question because especially in HR, right? If you ask 10 people the difference between churn, attrition, and turnover, you will likely get at least 3 different answers, if not
Yeah.
10 different ones.
Mhm.
Because there is some nuance to it. There's a cultural nuance to it. Depending on the country, it might vary a little bit. So there is a chance that you don't fully understand the KPIs and
Mhm.
what impact they have, which is why we try to give that narrative within the reports we give. We try to explain how that works, why is it important, what are you actually measuring when you look at that. And one very interesting thing Leatham said, right? It's you also have to correct for the bias because you don't want to predict the future completely based on historical trends because that might lead you away as well.
Mhm.
So when is the best time to look at KPIs? I think two-part answer. The best time to set up KPIs is immediately before go live so that you know what your success criteria looks like. Start measuring immediately after go live. The real data will come through within 2 to 3 months of going live.
Mhm.
That's when you have actual data. And then that's where you can, by that time, you can fix all your definitions. You can have training sessions to agree on what you're measuring. But it's set up and measure. Those are 2 different things. Um, and I think the setup is more important. You need to understand what you're measuring and why you need to do it using these KPIs. The other advice I often give is that there's something called the Goodhart's law, which means
Mhm.
whatever becomes a target becomes a bad measure because
Mhm.
now people try to game it, right? So don't make anything a target. It's more proxies that collectively indicate something.
Mhm.
And that's where you need to set it up early and then measure it continuously right from go live. Actual data starts coming in within a few months.
Okay. Brilliant. Thank you very much. And we're looking forward to you spreading some magic with your innovative business solutions. Thank you very much to everybody that joined. The recording will be available and we look forward to seeing you on future webinars.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.